Victoria City Expats Club is a non-profit social organisation and our speakers are volunteers. The club as such assumes no responsibility or liability for the professional reputation of or the quality of services provided by the speaker today.
That's how keen he is. And he would crawl up here for you guys. You're going to use that lion that you're going to use later on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I always use my lines.
Yeah. He always remembers his lines. Well, you have the great joy of spending some amount of time with the amazing Tweed Harris and his wonderful, colourful life and performing and et cetera, et cetera. So who was here last time Tweed gave a talk? It was less of a talk and more of a performance, really. It was involved dancing and singing.
So all virgin listeners.
Not all. No, a few people put their hand up.
Oh.
So, yeah. You're going to sing again for us? Little?
I don't know. It depends how the mood. Depends how the mood takes me.
So
let me get through my notes first.
Amongst his other skills, improv. Okay. So the most important thing I say to you: switch your phones off or to vibrate, and do not search the web while the speaker is talking. It's very disrespectful to the amount of time and everything they put in to preparing and being here. And I have it. I guess if you were millennials, I wouldn't be organising speakers because all the millennials would be on their phone and never look at the speaker, right? So we don't want to conduct ourselves like millennials, I think. Anyway, I will get out of the way and hand you over to the amazing Tweed Harris.
Absolutely. Astounding, amazing, yes. So Ren, you forgot unique. Astounding, amazing. You forgot unique.
I forgot to mention that I'm unique. And
that's right. Yes, good. Hello. I have to say before I start that this kind of reminds me of when I was teaching. You know, standing in front of a load of youngsters. But there we are.
Just quickly, of course, Tweed is now officially the most senior speaker we've ever had at the club, eclipsing the 88-year-old that gave a talk about 5 years ago or so. So. Amazing. We can certainly learn from our elders. So we will be humble students for you today.
Thank you. It's supposed to be reflections on aging and changing desires. So I'd like to illustrate that before I start with two of my beautiful family members. Everybody changes what they want to do, what they want to be, what they love, what they don't love as they age. And two marvelous examples I've got. One of somebody who wanted to change and managed to, and one person who never wanted to change their desire and also managed to live a beautiful life. The first one is my Nana. Nana was born in 1881, and her desire was to have a family. She fulfilled that desire 12 times with my lovely grandfather, and that wasn't enough. The war came along, and so she then adopted my sister and I, because stepdad was in the war, and Mum was doing special war efforts work, so we lived with Nana. So she had two more, me and my sister. That wasn't enough. So during the war, many men at work and the women stayed at home, had to go to work to earn a bit more money. Even though rationing was on, they still needed money to support their children. So Nana became a certified nanny. And the wonderful thing about her, she never changed. She died when she was 88, and at her funeral, no less than 58 adults turned up, all of whom were previous foster children of hers. So she really did her bit for looking after children. She never wanted to do anything different, so her desire for life was absolutely fulfilled. The second person was a man called Ron. He was found abandoned in a forest in France. The nuns found him and raised him, and because he was found in the forest, they named him Ronald Deforge. He was adopted by an English family, when he was very, very young. And his one desire in life was to have a home of his own and a family of his own children, sorry. And his dream came true because he met my mum and became my stepdad. Beautiful, beautiful man. So now let me start with my own desires. 1933, the year I was born. Nobody is born with a desire. We have no emotions then, but something in me, some instinct in me said, you have to live. My father had been killed by a hit-and-run driver about 2 hours before I was born. My mother, on hearing the news, let go of me quickly, and I was born with one lung, a floating stomach, no hair, no eyebrows, no eyelashes, no underarm hair, which to this day is still true, and of course I never had pubes. I've still got no arm hair. I do have pubes, so you have to take my word for that. And I determined I was going to live. I spent quite a lot of time in the hospital, of course, because of all those funny things that went wrong, but I survived. And that was my first desire, I suppose, a desire to live in spite of all those little setbacks. Anyway, let's move away from that tragic little entry into the world into 1940. 1940, the war was on. Lots of theatres in London were going to close. And the Hippodrome, the music hall in London, was about to close for the last time because of air raids, of course. And my grandmother loved the music hall, and she decided on the last night of the Hippodrome to take me along with her. Now, a naughty habit of mine when people sang on the radio was I felt it was my duty to sing twice as loud as them, out of respect for their music. I drowned out all the sounds on the radio by me singing, which didn't please my mother too much, but still, it pleased me. We got to the Hippodrome, to the music hall, and this lovely, lovely comedienne, Kate Carney, came on stage and started to sing one of her songs. I knew it. I had no choice. I had to show my respect to this lady and sing as loudly as I could. The song was Mother, I Love You. And she stopped the music, pointed in my direction, said, bring that urchin up here. My grandmother forced me to go on stage, saying to me as I go, you better apologize, you're still going to get smacked when you get home. We got on stage, and Kate Carney said, whenever I sing a duet, it's always with somebody who's on stage. Now behave yourself and do it properly. Do you know all the words? My grandmother answered for me, said, he knows all the words to all the songs, I think. And so she started off the music again, and I started my duet with Kate Carney. So my desire in 1940 suddenly became, I want to be a singer. More than anything in the world, I want to be a singer. Let's move on. 1949. I had been singing. I sang in a few contests, one small one here and there. But 1949 was a very sad year for me in some ways, but leading to a very happy life. I was madly in love. I was 16 and so in love you could not believe it. I thought this was where the whole world comes together and blesses me. But I was wrong. The person I loved had to get married. And I thought, oh, this is wrong. This is so wrong. And I don't want to stay here and watch this marriage, which I knew was a farce to begin with. And I ran away from home. At 16, I got a job as a galley boy in the Merchant Navy. And I washed dishes through France, Italy, Spain, North Africa, Egypt, India, Ceylon, and eventually ended up in Australia. I left the ship in Australia actually on my 17th birthday. And I'd survived that long journey on the ship And I say survived because, believe me, when you're 16 years old, blonde, blue eyes, and very nice, not beautifully muscled, but nice little body, sailors can be dangerous. But I survived, thanks to a cook who went with a hatchet to anybody that came near me. 1951, still in Australia, but remembering back to when I was, during the war, I was evacuated along with my sister to a farm in Suffolk. I thought this was going to be wonderful. I loved it because surrounded by animals, which to this day I love so much. Every kind of animal. Just quickly, I've been foster father to magpies with broken wings, orphaned joeys in Australia. A sick elephant for 8 months I looked after. Many dogs and cats that were abandoned I've looked after until I found proper homes for them. I cannot have enough animals around me. One Christmas, a friend of mine came. I say friends, I had lots of friends then because I had a swimming pool. So lots of friends used to come and visit. And they said, how many pets do I have? I said, I don't know, just go count. And they surprised me by telling me that I had 26 pets on my little property at that time. Anyway, I saw an ad in the paper, a groom wanted at a circus. I thought, this has got to be me. I lied through my teeth and said, yes, I've had lots of experience with horses. The only experience I'd had was riding my horse to school and riding it home again. That was it. But I said I knew all about grooming and caring, especially looking after the hooves, which I didn't know, but I'd seen other people do. Anyway, I lied myself into a job, and I finished getting a job as a groom for 12 amazing Arabs, 11 geldings and 1 stallion, and 8 amazing little Shetland ponies. And I loved my job. I loved it tremendously. I lost that job. My desire then was I wanted to be a circus performer, of course. I wanted to be in the ring on the horses, jumping on and off the moving horses. A desire that was never fulfilled, but I was happy just being a groom. I lost that job because I loved animals. I saw another groom was curry combing one of the horses, and the horse kicked. And instead of just settling the horse down, the groom punched the horse. So, stupid me, I went in and punched the groom. Unfortunately, I was seen by the horse trainer, and one of his rules was you never ever fight in front of the horses. So I was sacked on the spot, which was very sad, but still, it's an experience. So my desire to become a circus performer was never going to be fulfilled. 1953. Another ad in the paper, this time looking for chorus boys for the opening or the reopening of the Theatre Royal in Hobart, Tasmania, because it had been gutted by fire. It had been refurbished, they were reopening it. The leading lady of the musical part of the show was a lady called Fifi Banvard. And she had advertised for chorus boys to back her up in her show. So I went along to the office, told them I would like to be a chorus boy. They asked me lots of questions. Another lot of lies came out of my mouth. But then eventually I said, look, just let me sing. So I sang. And as I was singing, this huge lady barged into the office and said, he'll do. It was Fifi Banvard, the first lesbian I ever met in my life. Gorgeous, beautiful lady, but huge. Not so her girlfriend was petite, pretty little thing. And so she said, okay, you're coming to see you at the opening of the Theatre Royal. The first rehearsal is on such and such a date. See you there. I said, I don't know how. I have no money. I'm actually living in a tent that the circus left behind because I have nowhere to live. So I'm certainly not going to be able to pay my airfare to Tasmania. So lovely Fifi said, okay, I'll pay your airfare. When you start work, you'll be paid, and out of your wages, you'll pay me back eventually. So I said, yes, but where will I live? She said, oh, with me. yeah, I've got a lovely house, another bedroom, you can live there. And that's when I found out that she was like me, gay. And I lived with her and her beautiful partner, Gwen, and she did treat me extremely well. I might say that to this day I don't believe she ever charged me for that airplane fare. I don't remember ever paying it. But anyway, there I was, on stage, but one of my duties was not just to go on stage as a chorus singer. I had to help Fifi backstage, and she had some quick changes. One of the quick changes involved her running off the stage, stripping off her top, and then going back on with just 2 pasties on her boobies. My job was to stand in the wings with the pasties, ready to put them on when she rushed off. It's a very important job, believe me, and you have to be careful. I mean, if you miss, you go on looking like a real freak, you know. But anyway, it worked. And then, luckily, another lady, not gay this time, an absolutely straight lady, came to see the show, and she said, "You have lovely facial expressions. I've got a play I want you to do, but you have to black up." I said, "Okay, I don't mind, I don't care, I'd play anything." But I didn't have to black up, I had to brown up. I was going to be a slave in the play Antony and Cleopatra. I was going to be one of Cleopatra's slaves. And in one scene, I was thrown on stage. My black wig came off, and my gold earring, which was clip-on, fell off. And of course, everybody started laughing. Luckily, this was just rehearsal. So I said, no, I'm not going to go through that. I'm not going to risk it. You want me to do it? I'll do it properly. So off I went, had my ear pierced, put a gold sleeper in, had my hair dyed. Lovely publicity that turned out to be, because they dyed half the head and left the other half blonde and took photos. Lovely publicity for the photograph. I think the heading was, "What an actor will do for his art." Actually, I wasn't. I was doing it for money. I was being paid. So that was lovely. So there my desire suddenly changed. I knew from that moment on I was going to be an actor, a great actor. I had a few to look up to. So I started to look around for plays I could do. 1954. Another sad occasion. Oh, I probably need to mention here that I wasn't alone, or my mother wasn't alone all her life. When I was 7 years old, she met a lovely postman delivering the mail, and they fell in love and got married. Sadly, he died only 4 years later of cancer, so my mother had a pretty rotten time. But I went back to be with my mother because my stepfather had died. I didn't know it then, otherwise I would never have gone back. But I was grabbed metaphorically by the government in England and said, "You haven't done your national service." So there I was, forced to sign on for national service. And when I found out what the conditions were, I said, "No, thank you. I am not going to sign on and work for somebody for that pittance. I could earn as much as that just doing a television commercial." But they wanted to pay me £8, I think it was, a month. I can't remember exactly. But I said, no, I'll take the alternative. I'll sign on for 3 years and do 4 years reserve. So I signed on as a regular, knowing that I could then, as a regular, use the army to study whatever I wanted. So my ambition in 1954, my desire, was to be as good a soldier as I could be without getting caught doing what I know I shouldn't. So I joined. They asked me what I wanted to join, and they gave me alternatives, and they said you could join the catering corps, and I said, well, that's fine if you don't mind poisoning your troops, or you can join the medical corps. So I said, okay, I'd rather help people live than kill them with food. So I became a private in the Royal Army Medical Corps. At this time, my resume had been sent to the commanding officer of Company C in Aldershot, and he said, you can stay on camp here and organise entertainment for the troops, for the incoming intakes, because you've had a lot of experience in theatre and so on. I said, okay, fine. So I organised movies and light shows and visiting drama groups for the troops. And I tried to be a good soldier. I was a good soldier, actually. Because they wanted to keep me on campus, they were forced to give me a stripe, which was lovely. Means I got more pay. Then I studied nursing orderly, which I thought was better than just doing nothing. And I passed those exams, so I got my second stripe. Then the commanding officer heard about being posted overseas. He said, no, I still want you here on this camp to organise entertainment. So he said, I can organise it, but only if you become a company clerk, and that involves getting your third stripe. So I said, okay, thank you very much, more money. So I got my third stripe. So I tried to be a very good soldier. Then the Suez Crisis came along. Suez Crisis came along and everybody had to be posted overseas. I was hankering for a posting as a secretary to one of the commanders in Paris. I got the letter. I'd been posted, I'd been seconded actually, to the Royal West African Frontier Force in Nigeria. So off I went to Nigeria, but when you got an overseas posting, you had to get a promotion. So I was now a staff sergeant. It was lovely. I looked so pretty with the gold stripes and a little crown, and in my lovely navy and gold uniform. But I managed to get through it. I managed to get through the 4 years in Nigeria without getting caught, not without doing anything naughty, but without getting caught anyway. And eventually ended my service, got dismissed, and went home. 1958. I had no idea what I was going to do. I couldn't be a good soldier anymore. I wasn't really interested. I tried acting, and I actually got a lovely part in a play called Alison's Lad. I was the supporting player, but I really enjoyed it. And I learned a little bit of stagecraft from the leading man. The leading man was a man called Mickey Micklewhite. Many of you probably know him better as Sir Michael Caine. And he and I actually grew up together. We lived in the same street, went to the same school. We got in the army together. We had malaria together. But he did something that even I wouldn't do, but he got him noted by a nice producer who got him into movies, and I'm sure he's never regretted it. So, what else was I going to do? I got a job selling stationery, I think. It was awful. I hated it. But there was a time when it was considered ordinary in England. If you wanted a holiday, you went to little camps called Butlins. Butlins holiday camps, where everything was organised for you. So I went to Pwllheli in Wales and had a lovely holiday in their Butlins holiday camp. And of course, they had all kinds of little competitions. And of course, luckily, they had a singing competition called the Melody Maker Vocalist of the Year. And arrogant me said, I'll try. So I went up and I joined the singing competition. And I was amazed myself that I came first and won. I didn't actually win anything. What I won was the opportunity to compete with all the other holiday camp winners at a big concert at the Trocadero in London. So but that convinced me that my desire then was to be a singer. 1958. I carried on singing for a while, did a few musicals, made a few commercials, did a few television shows. And then I started to look into my acting a bit more, and I wasn't happy with what directors were making me do. I was often in trouble arguing with the director. Why do you make me do this? It doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right. So one of them said to me one day, if you don't like it, why don't you be the bloody director yourself? I thought, what a good idea. What a very good idea. But first of all, I had to get back to where I was happy. So I sat my mum down and said, Mum, we need to talk. She said, no, we don't. You're going back to Australia. I said, yes, I am. I was happy there. So off I went, back to Australia. And I went back to Tasmania, and I found a little theatre called the Playhouse. They were an amateur company, but quite good. So I joined them, but I joined first as an actor, but then I came across a play I really wanted to see done. A beautiful message about racism, which to me, to this day, has always been one of the things I hate most in life. And I wanted to do this play so badly, but it was written for a white actor and a black actor. Well, not easy to find a black actor in Australia, because although there were lots of Aborigines, none of them were real actors. And blackface was not, I don't know, it didn't really look right. So I changed the script from a black actor to a Jew. And I directed the play as a Jew versus Christian. And it just went so well. And I loved it so much. But more important than directing the play was the fact that I was going to play the Christian, of course, but I wanted somebody that looked a little bit like a Jew. Sallow complexion, slightly big nose perhaps, stereotypes maybe, but still. I walked into the bank to put $1 in the bank. That was another story of mine. I had this absolutely gorgeous bank teller. I used to go every day, put $1 in, the next day go and draw the dollar out just to talk to him. And I went there and I looked at him one day and I thought, my God, you'd be perfect. And I said to him, have you ever acted? He said, I love it, but not many people will employ me because I'm a bit different looking. I said, okay, you're perfect looking for what I want. He came, he auditioned, he got the part, and he got more than just a part in the play. He got part of me too. And it was a successful production. So now my desire was, I want to be a director. I want to tell the actors what to do, so I know they're doing it right. 1979. I was still acting, still directing, and I was invited by a teacher to go to a high school and talk, just like I'm talking to a group of youngsters now, about the advantages and the joys of being an actor, and the downfalls of being an actor too. I loved it so much. I loved the response. I loved the feeling that was going on between the students and I. And the teacher who invited me obviously loved it too. He said, I've never seen my kids pay attention to somebody like this. You should become a teacher. I thought, what a good idea. Backed by the fact that my mother had often said to me, it's okay being an actor, but also get a real job. So I did. I enrolled as a mature age student to Teachers College. Absolutely overwhelmed by the fact that when I finished the exam, I not only was accepted, but I was sent a lovely letter saying, you'll be pleased to know you now hold the record for the highest level achieved by an entrance student to this college. So I went. I loved teaching. I loved everything about it. I loved maths more than anything, but I always did that at school. I always loved maths when I was at school. But I love now teaching maths. But also, the actor on me loved being a teacher. I could act to my students, and it was lovely. They enjoyed it. I used to turn up in costume sometimes to put over special points of things I was teaching. And I loved it. I was an actor in school, really, and I loved it. So I knew now that my desire was to be not a good teacher, but possibly one of the best. one that I would have people look up to me the way I looked up to and remembered my teachers. Arthur Spooner, Wilfred Wilkinson, biology Bertha. I remember all my teachers from high school. And so I wanted to be a brilliant teacher. Well, of course, by then I'd also thought, if I'm using drama in the schoolroom to teach my kids, why can't other teachers? So I wrote a thesis on using drama as a teaching tool. One of the luckiest things I ever did, because as a result of that, I got invited to teach in schools in Singapore, Cambodia, Malaysia, and China. Teaching not children, I was teaching teachers how to use drama in their classroom to make their teaching more interesting, more alive, and keep the kids involved and enjoying what they were doing. My philosophy has always been, a happy child will learn. I remember one incident in a primary school. I had a boy, and I said, after about 2 hours, I said, I'm going to ring up your mum. He said, what? I said, he said, I'm not being naughty. I said, no, you're not, but you haven't smiled, and you know what I say. If you're not happy at school, you won't learn. You're not happy, you might as well go home. You haven't smiled once this morning. I will, teacher, I'll smile, I promise. And he smiled for the rest of the day. To me, I don't know, kids need to be encouraged to learn, not beaten to learn, but encouraged. And I loved it. So I was now going to be a teacher, said he. Until 1997. I was still teaching in Singapore. I was teaching English, I was teaching maths, I was teaching drama at British Council, American College, and La Salle College of Arts. And I was also running these courses for teachers, how to use drama in your classroom. But something much more important happened to me in Singapore. I was walking past a KFC one night, and I've always admired, of all things, everybody admires something physical. I mean, I know lots of people who love muscular men and women with long blonde hair. We've all got lovely physical attractions. For me, it's always been legs, not ladies' legs. I've always loved those strong legs of the volleyball players in particular. So I used to belong to a volleyball team, a nude volleyball team on Swanbourne Beach in Australia. We used to play volleyball in the nude, which was a swinging time. And I loved thick, strong legs. And I saw this pair of legs, and I thought, my God, he's got to be a volleyball player. And I said to the friend I was with, I said, if that guy turns around and smiles at me, I'm gone. He turned. He smiled. So I went up and smiled back and got chatting. Let's cut a long story short. He wasn't a baseball player. He wasn't a volleyball player. He was a, what do you call it? A shuttlecock player, badminton player. And of course, as soon as he mentioned the word shuttlecock, I was gone. That was it. I thought, oh, that's my life. I wouldn't mind shuttling a cock with you, and I did. For 14 wonderful years. We actually got married. Illegal in Singapore, definitely not allowed. We got married at the Intercontinental Hotel in Bugis in Singapore. And we couldn't call it that. We called it Exchange of Vows of Lasting Friendship. And all my friends came, all my teaching colleagues came, some of my students came. It was a lovely, lovely ceremony. And my partner, my Chinese partner, hadn't come out to anybody yet. He hadn't told anybody, certainly not his family, that he was gay. And I felt so bad that he had no representative at this wedding. So I asked him, I said, who is your best friend? And he told me. I said, give me his phone number. So I rang up his best friend and I said, would you like to come to a wedding Veron, his name was. Geron. So Geron, his girlfriend's name was Veron. He said, whose? I said, mine and Chen Leng. He said, really? I said, yes. He said, I knew he was, but I wasn't sure. I said, for God's sake, tell him you know. He so desperately needs a friend who knows what he is and accepts him. And he did. He told Chen Leng, I know it's fine. And he came with his girlfriend to the wedding and wrote in the book, best wedding I've ever been to. Best one I've ever been to as well. So there we are. 14 years with that incredible man. Still my best friend to this very day. No longer married, but absolutely good friends. So friendly, in fact, that when I found a new partner, which I have now, in Thailand, Chen Leng flew to Thailand to meet him, and they are now good friends. I don't understand these people that say, oh, I used to be in love for so long, and then we broke up, and I don't talk to them anymore. You cannot be in love and just switch it off the next day. Love changes, but it does not stop. It never, never ends. So there I was, 1999, an old bugger already, getting my pension. But I didn't want it. I didn't want a pension. I wanted to carry on teaching. I had to find, in Singapore, there is no retirement age. But the thing is, Chen Leng wanted to study, and he wanted to study at a good university. So I talked him into going back to Australia and studying at the university that I'd graduated from. And so we were now back in Australia. Built a beautiful home, 23 steps from the front door to the beach. Got myself 2 gorgeous lassie dogs, 4 beautiful cats, and very, very happy. But as I say, 14 years later, over an argument over one of the dogs, believe it or not, we broke up, but not too seriously. As I say, we're still friends. But now I had to find somewhere who would employ me, who didn't say I was too old and would give me a job, which, let me digress and tell you about an experience I had in Thailand. I went to apply for a job here, and they said, oh, no, we've got no vacancies. I said, look, I'll teach, I don't need pay. I'll volunteer to be a teacher. Just let me teach. And he said, no, we can't do that, because if somebody walks in, they'll assume we're paying you, and we'll be in trouble for giving you work when you're on a visa which says no work. So there I was stuck. And then these 2 young teachers came out, and they were Australian. And I said, hello, how long have you been teaching here? Oh, only a couple of months. Oh, which university did you come? Which teaching college did you go to in Australia? Oh, we didn't. So I said to the lady, the receptionist, I said, how come they haven't been to college, and yet they'll teach, and you won't accept me? I've got 4 qualifications for teaching. One of them, 100% pass from the Trinity College London. No, you don't understand. Children in Thailand like their teachers to be young and good looking. So I said, thank you very much. You just told me I'm not too old to teach, I'm just too bloody ugly. And I walked out very, very upset. Not that upset, I can tell you. Never get really upset. Let's move on away from all that nonsense. 2008. Another tragic. I've had a lot of tragedy in my life, but I've overcome them all. I woke up one morning and went to switch the bedside light on. It wouldn't go on. I thought, oh, damn, power cut or something. So I got out of bed, went over to the window, pulled the curtains open. Nothing. Then I realized I was blind. I'd gone blind overnight. I phoned up Chen Leng, my lovely friend, and he came over, picked me up, took me to hospital. I was put into the Royal Melbourne Eye Hospital, there for 4 months on all kinds of treatments. But gradually, slowly, my sight came back. To this day, they have no idea why I went blind. It's not cataracts or anything like that, just something that happened. They took cut samples from the side of my eye. They took a little bit from the brain or something. But to this day, I have no idea why I went blind. But I did. But luckily, I recovered. So my desire now, or then, my desire then was to see again. And I bloody well did. That's it. Never found out why. 2012. I was feeling a bit down, and I have a lovely auntie who said to me, you only like Asian guys, don't you? I said, yes. She said, well, piss off to Asia. So I booked a 3-night holiday in Bangkok. Siam Discovery Shopping Centre in Bangkok. Walking around. I'm sorry, I've kind of been looking at this a lot. I'm going to ignore, I've been ignoring this side of the audience. Yes, sorry about that. But mind you, that's my better side, believe it or not. And walking around, and I passed this guy. And I thought, my God, if all Thai men look like that, I'm in heaven. And I said to another friend I was with, watch that guy. Walking around, past the same guy again. This time I stared at him. He looked back at me a little bit, but then moved on. I said to my friend again, if we pass him a third time, I'm going to accost him. I don't care. I'm going to go up and ask him, are you gay? He will do one of two things, or one of three things. Tell me to off, punch me in the face, walk away. I don't know what he'll do, but at least I'll have my answer. I was 79 years old. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life on my own. So I had to be bold. So I went up to him the third time we did pass and said, excuse me, are you gay? There was a long pause. And I said, well, that's my answer. The straight guy would have answered me one way or the other by now. Punch, kick, tell me what to do. So I said, okay, please do me the great honor of having dinner with my friend and I so we can chat and you can tell me a little bit about Thailand. Cut another long story short. That is the guy I'm with today, 11 years later. I'm still with him. Picked him up in a shopping center. Best shopping I've ever done in my life. Best shopping spree ever. And so there I am with this. His name is Nut. It's not his name, that's what we call him, Nut. So I now sort of talk about the fact that I have a nut allergy. So what is my desire now? I'm 90 years old. Do I have a desire? Yes, I do. My desire is to go on living, go on loving, and go on being loved. 11 years with my own personal lover, and I want to validate two people in my life. My Buddhist master in the temple. I became a Buddhist many, many years ago, before I ever came to Thailand. I became Buddhist at a Vietnamese temple in Australia. My Buddhist temple master in Australia and a Chinese fortune teller I've met since both have told me the same thing. I'm going to live to 105. I don't know if they're right. I'd like to prove them both right, because the thought of living to 105 with my gorgeous man is something that is my desire. That is my desire now. So, let's leave you on a happy, happy, silly note. A poem I recently wrote. This month I wrote it. I don't know why I wear those. I only need them for effect, I think. If only someone had warned me when I was 50 or even 60. But when starting to talk about old age, people get really shifty. No one tells you about things you use to do but cannot any longer. They tell you about Viagra, but that doesn't make everything stronger. Used to sleep all through the night with dreams of lovely starlets. Now I run all night to pee. Thank God it isn't scarlet. Of course, I'm really grateful about how long I've really lasted. But the last time I got really thrilled was when I double farted. The things no one ever told you was the way things slowly crumble. I can no longer enjoy getting drunk and having a rough and tumble. The highlight of my old age, it seems, is to just wake up at 7 and thank the Lord I'm not in hell. I never aspired to heaven. For hell is where my old mates are, who can't wait to remind me I'm old, but also to remind me that in hell I will never get cold. I guess you get the message. Getting too old is just not fun. I've just reached the age of 90, and the only working thing is my bum. Well, of course, since I had been born as a gay, that's really not so bad. But I have to confess, I really miss the chance of being a dad. Then again, I had many great kids, especially when I was teaching. But now I think it's time for me to end this time of preaching. Before I go, I have to say, it's not all doom and gloomy. And if you don't like something I've said, go ahead, sue me. Thank you. I don't suppose anybody's madly interested, but it did say on my notes, if I've got anything to sell, I can sell it. Well, one thing I've got to sell you can't afford. That's me, of course. But there is one thing I have to sell, if anybody's interested. I have the last 2 copies in existence in Thailand of my autobiography. Written in 2002, of course written in Australia, which is why it's called The Gay Mates and not Good Day Mates. Anybody interested, just come and chat. I won't charge you too much.
And I have read it, and it's a really good read. You really want to read it. It's really special.
Be warned. It's very specific.
Yeah.
My mother said it should be called Search for the Biggest Dick, but that's not really what it's all about. It has other interesting things in it too.
Question and answers.
Oh, sorry, I forgot about that.
Mr. Tweedy, can I ask you a question? Okay, the second question is, how are you feeling today? How are you feeling today? Really?
I always feel, I wake up every morning, I turn over in my bed, I look at Nut and I think, that's it, another lovely day for me. Why should I not feel wonderful? I still get up, I still eat, I still drink, I still pee, I still go to the gym.
Wunderbar.
And I'm loved and I love. That's it.
Okay.
What else can you want in life?
You're forgiven.
Oh, ask me something. Come on. Make it sound as I have been interesting. Ask me an uninteresting question.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank you for that talk. I really enjoyed it, especially having been a teacher myself and having acted myself. I really related to your experiences of those and how one carried over into the other. And also how both gave you energy and a love of life. And that really came over in the emotion, in the way you talked, and I love that.
Thank you so
much. And I think
much.
that's probably what's kept you going for so long. That love of life and that connection with your feelings. But I just wanted to ask one thing. I remember when I was a boy, I read a magazine, a comic in England called The Eagle. And there was a comedy character in The Eagle called Harris Tweed. And I just wondered why you called yourself, is it Tweed Harris you call yourself?
Okay, that's an interesting story. My grandfather is from Scotland, Leith in Scotland, came from a shipping family, quite well-to-do, but he made the mistake of falling in love with one of the maids, a lovely little Spanish lady that used to work for the family. And the family disapproved of this, of course, and said if he married her, he would be disowned. So he did the only thing that he should do, ran away with the maid to England and married her there. And then when I was born, of course, that was the lady, my grandmother, who had 12 children, and one of them being my mother, of course. And when I was born, my grandmother picked me up and said, "Oh, he's like a bit of soft tweed." And they thought, "Oh, what a lovely, we'll keep that as his name." Not realizing that the surname is Harris, and not knowing that, of course, for the rest of my life, when you fill in a form, you have to put your surname first. I'm forever writing Harris Tweed, Harris Tweed. But it's my grandmother that gave me the name of Tweed, and Harris, of course, is the family name.
So you have to, some people don't have our background, you have to explain Harris Tweed reference.
Oh, Harris Tweed is a very famous material made in only one place in the world. That's an island off the coast of Scotland. Very expensive. I had somebody tell me the other day that he was wearing me on his back, which means he had a Harris Tweed coat, a Harris Tweed jacket. You won't see them much in Thailand. I mean, it's just too hot for tweed anyway. It's a very expensive and very beautiful material. Like me, I'm beautiful and expensive too. I heard somebody laugh at that. I don't know whether they were laughing at the beautiful bit or the expensive. I'll assume it was the expensive.
Well, I think that's one of the most charming talks we've ever had at the club. Who would agree with me?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Really charming talk. And I hope that when I hit 90 years, I can give a talk as luminous as that one was.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we do have a very small token of our appreciation to go with the previous
with my other one. Thank
yes, yes, indeed.
Have a pair now. They're worth more as a pair.
Yeah, like balls, right?
Well, I wasn't going to say that.
Yeah, I know. I know you're thinking. Turn around, we can see it. Wow, thank you so much, Tweed. It was even more wonderful than the last time you were here, really. It was really, really special. And I'm sure, I know many of us had relatives who, as they aged, they weren't quite so switched on, like my mother had Alzheimer's. So it's always just a delight, a total delight to meet someone